What's up, everyone? Aaron Nagler here at Cheesehead TV, coming to you to talk some Packers. A lot of you have been asking, where are the Facebook Lives? Well, they're back. I'm sorry it took a little while. A great deal of you were anxious for me to appear on your Facebook feeds. We're on the Cheesehead TV page. We're also cross-posting at my personal page, my blogger page, so hopefully you guys will find me there. You can jump in at the comments whenever you so desire. I know the real reason you're all here is because of the news that's breaking as we're going live. Janis cut by the Cleveland Browns. And before you ask, no, I don't see the Packers bringing him back. Brad, what's up, man? Scott, let's go. That's right, people. The Packers obviously winding up preseason last night in Kansas City. Decent in the first half, pretty ugly in the second half, but that's to be expected in the fourth preseason game. Oh, look at all these people chiming in. Kyle Kuzno is here. The mayor of Green Bay is here, people, so be on your best behavior. McQuaid, how are you? Julia, good to see you again. Nice of everyone to drop by. The Packers will have to be down to the mandatory 53-man roster tomorrow, Saturday afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern. Obviously, as Mike McCarthy always likes to say, it's actually the 63 when you include the practice squad. But, of course, to get those 10 guys onto the practice squad, they are subject to waivers first, which is always the cat and mouse game played around the league. Michael's asking if we can use a prehistoric background around me. That's right. Right now, I've got control of what goes on back there. So, you know, Banky's out of luck this time around. Corey Banky would like you all to know it is not a green screen. That is correct. Bo, first question, and it's a good one. Does Kendricks make it? I know a lot of people are enamored with Robert Tonyan. For good reason. The kid has really produced in the preseason. He's had a very good camp, caught pretty much everything thrown to him. But you got to remember, it is preseason, and he is going up against backups to backups for the most part. I definitely get the excitement around the kid, and I definitely get why people are anxious to get him on the squad. I do think he is tailor-made for the practice squad. You look at the team, yes, they could save $1.5 million by cutting Lance Kendricks. Kendricks is a seasoned pro who knows the offense, who's been in the NFL for a number of years. You can count on him. He's probably a little bit better of a blocker than Tonyan is at this point. Tonyan's still a converted wide receiver making the transition to the NFL. There are going to be so many things going on when week one comes around that Tonyan's not going to be used to and not going to be ready for, which Kendricks has seen a million times. Again, I get the impetus and the desire for fans to move on, and maybe the Packers make that call. Maybe they decide they'd like to ensure that he's on their squad. But essentially, a Super Bowl run is not going to be won or lost by whether they make the choice between Tonyan and Kendricks, whatever that might be. Zoom came on Nagler. Nobody wants that. Is Cobb getting cut? I would be absolutely shocked if Cobb was getting cut, unless there's some news breaking right after I went live, but I tend to doubt it. Trevor Davis or Dimitri Goodson, who's more likely to stay? Scott, I got to say Trevor Davis obviously had his first action last night, had one nice return. You're never going to see him much from scrimmage probably at wide receiver. Goodson's value, such as it is when the Packers talk about him, is on special teams. They've liked him as a gunner. They've liked him on teams. You've seen time and again he cannot hold up in coverage, on team drill work. But to me, I don't think there's any question. Between those two, Davis is the obvious choice. What is your impression of Antonio Morrison? Hey, he's a sure tackler. That's something that really stands out on a team filled with bad tackling. There's no doubt you saw last night that one particular play where the pass was in the flat. He exploded out of the middle of the field to track down the ball carrier and stop him in his tracks. It's the kind of play you don't see a whole heck of a lot from the Green Bay defense. I think he'll probably play roughly 20, 25 snaps now that we know that Oren Burks is not going to play week one and possibly beyond. Ian Rappaport of NFL Network dropping that news a little bit ago. They're going to need him. They're going to need him, especially against teams that like to load up and run the ball. J.K. Scott is killing it. McQuaid, you got that right. There's no doubt about it. A lot of people, obviously a lot of wringing of hands when that selection was made, using a fifth-round selection on a punter. But so far, early returns are really good. Clearly, he needed to adjust a little bit there early on in the preseason, had some missed kicks, but you've seen the consistency now the last 2 weeks. Last night especially, I think his average was 52 yards. He hit 156 at one point with 5 seconds of a hang time. That is godlike punting. in a land that has been pretty godless when it comes to punters. J.K. Scott bringing it back, old school, huge hang time, huge distance. Now, as my former colleague Tom Silverstein pointed out on his podcast this morning, it is one thing to do it now, here late August, early September. It is quite another thing to do it, say, late December, early January. So early returns are good, but we've got to see how he operates in the weather. Obviously not known for kicking in inclement weather down in Alabama. But the early returns are excellent. Oren Burks on IR. Brad, no, he's not going to IR, but he will be missing the first couple weeks at minimum. Like I think reports have said earlier this week, the shoulder injury is not as bad as they initially feared, but he will miss some time. There's no doubt about that. Does EQ make the roster? Ryan, that's an excellent question. That's one of the big questions as far as how the wide receiver core will be made up. I tend to think they'll cut him and put him on the practice squad. I don't think there's much danger in him getting picked up by another team. If he were to get cut, I do think he'd make it through waivers. And he's a perfect example. He'd be kind of the Geronimo Allison of this squad. You know, obviously, Allison was an undrafted guy, but he started on the practice squad, was called up later in the year, and played some significant snaps. I tend to expect, you know, injury attrition being what it is in the NFL, he'll probably be called upon at some point later on in the year. I think the practice squad makes a lot of sense for him. Thoughts on Jair's performance last night and in the preseason? I think he's solid. I think he's as advertised. He's fast. He got good ball skills. And I think you saw last night one play in particular where he did an excellent job stringing a running play out and dropping it for a loss. It was a really physical play. That was one of those things that Joe Witt Jr. said in the media availability last week or 2 weeks ago, where he mentioned being a little bit surprised at Alexander's physicality. I think his college tape showed a kid who very adept in coverage, speedy, able to get downfield, turn his hips, etc. You expected all that, but to see the physicality at the point of attack, that's been a bit of a surprise and a pleasant one if you're the Packers. Let's get Mac. There we go. It took a while to get our first Khalil Mack comment and or question, but there it is. I'll tell you what, the Packers have the ammunition to do it. They could certainly make it work with the salary cap. I'd be absolutely shocked if Brian Gutekunst made that move. That's just me. Maybe it happens, but I don't think it's likely at this point. How often will I be doing Facebook Live sessions from now on? Philip, the hope is to do them close to daily during the week. It probably won't be this setup on the weekends, like after games, but during the week, Monday through Friday, hopefully we'll be doing one of these every day. Did any backup offensive linemen step up yesterday? You know what? I thought Jason Spriggs had his best performance of the summer. Camp practice or games. Spriggs obviously not going against the top flight starters for Kansas City, but we've seen him struggle against backups all preseason. And I thought last night was by far and away his best performance of the summer. Thoughts on the fullbacks? Neil, I think it's a toss-up. I would probably take Carriage. I like his game. I think he's a little bit more physical than Ripkowski is in the running game. Obviously, they probably will go with Ripkowski. I think there's familiarity there. They really drastically reduced the use of the fullback last season. Maybe they cut the fullback completely from the offense. I doubt that, but it's a possibility. Does Jamon pass Geronimo on the depth chart by season's end? No. How's that for an easy answer? Christopher, I'm having one of those right after this is done. Do you still work for the Press Gazette? Ron, no, I do not. Get all your stuff at cheeseheadtv.com. That's where you want to be. Greer Martini make the roster? Brad, I doubt it. Now, it really depends on what they think they need at middle linebacker or inside linebacker, with Oren Burks being, sat down for the first few weeks. I think the possibility is there simply because he's contributed on special teams throughout the summer. Maybe they think they need those numbers elsewhere. I would lean towards no, but I won't be surprised if he does make it. Did Jamon Moore look like he was having a pity party last night? That's not a description that leapt to my mind, Paul. I'm not sure where you're getting that, but hey, we each watch in different ways, don't we? Percent chance Janis comes back. There you go, Sam. That's the good stuff. Jeff Janis, I'll give it a 7.3% chance that Jeff Janis is back in Green Bay's locker room at some point this season as something more than a visitor. Do the Vikings make the Super Bowl? Katie, no, they're the Minnesota Vikings. 3 quarterbacks? Ernie, I tell you what, I know Rob Demovsky reported for ESPN that the plan going into last night was to keep both Kaiser and Boyle on the 53. I don't see how you need to keep 3 quarterbacks on the roster. I think you're just wasting a roster spot. You know, obviously, Boyle's got a big arm. You're really excited about him, but I can't imagine some team picking him up. Now, maybe, you never know. I didn't think anybody would pick up Callahan, and the Saints went ahead and did that. So maybe they're scared enough that they, you know, getting burned by that in the Taysom Hill episodes that they decide to keep him. But, I mean, that second half pretty much showed you all the work he has to do. I don't know. But to me, I can't imagine using 3 roster spots at the quarterback position. But there's a possibility the Packers do so. Do you think the staff feel really comfortable with their outside linebacker depth? Probably not, but they've got to make it work. Funnily enough, that's kind of what Ron Zook told us last week when he said somebody asked him about the long snapping position if he felt comfortable. And he said, well, I don't really have a choice. You know, you got to use who the personnel group gives you. And right now, I think they've got 3 legit players out there. You can look at Matthews, you can look at Perry, and you can look at Gilbert. I definitely put Gilbert in that group. Outside of that, there's a lot of question marks, a lot of untapped potential, maybe some, trying to be kind here, some players getting by who shouldn't be. You know, I think it's been, for a while now, they should have been moving on from Fackrell. They haven't. They didn't exactly draft high for that position. Vince Beagle, I think he's had a solid camp. I don't think he's had a lot of highlight plays or things that make you turn your head and go, wow, how did you do that? Things that have kind of done anything to allay the fears that they don't have much depth there. He'll obviously make the roster, but I don't think he's going to get a ton of playing time, especially early in the season. Do they see enough from ESB for him to be a lock? No, I don't think so. I said earlier, a little bit earlier in the video, if I'm in charge, I cut him and put him on the practice squad. Maybe the Packers keep him because he was a draft pick, but we'll find out by this time tomorrow. How many offensive linemen will make the roster, 9 or 10? Julia, I would say 9. I know Zach here at cheeseheadtv.com, he posited 10 on his 53. It really depends on what they think as far as versatility for those backup guys and what they think they have there. But we'll see. They kept 10 last year out of the gate, and then they needed all 10 because they had so many injuries. But we'll see. I think that you'll see the kind of expected cuts. I think you'll see Amitia and Nelson and those guys, but we'll see what they think about the guys, the tackles especially. You know, Mike McCarthy saying earlier today that Kyle Murphy won't be ready for week 1. We'll see how long he is out and how much roster kind of wiggle room that gives them. Maybe if they put him on IR, that would spell the end of his year. Ernie, Dylan Day, I think he makes the roster. I think, you know, they've seen him play a little bit of guard. He's obviously been the backup center for most of camp. I don't think he's had a great camp, but I think he's shown he's got potential that they could get through some games with him if something happened to Lindsley. Who's the long snapper? Bring back Good? Katie, I doubt they bring back Good. I think they'll go with not the guy they drafted, the other kid whose name is totally escaping me at the moment. Sorry. Kyle Murphy to IR or PUP? Well, Ernie, he can't go on PUP because he practiced during camp. You can only go on the regular season PUP is if you are on PUP throughout the entirety of training camp in the preseason. Once you come off of PUP, like Nick Perry has done, for example, you are ineligible. Once you practice during training camp, you are ineligible for the physically unable to perform list. So if some kind of roster move was made with Murphy due to his injury, it would be to injured reserve. Now maybe they would bring him back later in the year, like they did a couple times with Spriggs last year, but we'll see. Do you miss Ted Thompson and his in-depth answers at press conferences? You know, there's a little bit of me that misses the old Ted. You know, he was always good with a quip. He had a really dry sense of humor. I mean, it's been really refreshing having Brian Gutekunst. I mean, heck, yesterday we got Brian Gutekunst on a conference call after Aaron Rodgers signed his deal. No way in God's green earth Ted Thompson would ever have done that. So it's been a nice change of pace, but I do miss Ted. Bryce or Josh Jones at strong safety? Oh, Steve. Talk about a choice of evils. Probably Bryce because they like him better, I think. There's a reason he started camp at the #1 spot opposite Clinton Dix. I don't think you've seen anything out of Jones that makes you think he's put up much of a fight to take that spot. I think they would have liked that, but I don't see anybody having taken that spot away from Bryce. Could Cole Madison join the team during the season? Dan, he could, but time is running out. Will Oren Burks have to be put on the active roster since he can't go on PUP? Yes, Brad. Not a Wisco Disco, Michael. That will be for transplants. Maybe. We'll see. Kumaro IR designated to return. Brett, something to remember. There is no more designated to return. You can bring back anybody. You get 2 players that you can bring back after 8 weeks. Remember last year they brought back Jason Spriggs and Aaron Rodgers. Now the IR designated return went away. I think last year was the first year of that new rule. But there's a chance they put Murphy on IR for that specific purpose. Do you expect big things from Kevin King, Manuel? Yes, I do. You saw a little bit of him last night. I think they just wanted to get him some reps, some game reps since he had missed so much time. Shoulder seems to be holding up nicely now. And I said at the beginning of camp, I thought he was having an excellent start to camp, kind of glimpses of that second-year jump they always like to talk about. I don't think there's any question you're going to have a really promising season from him. And obviously, I don't think he's arrived. He's got a lot more work to do, but the early returns are really good on Kevin King. The Bears still suck. Thank you, Johnny. I can't believe it took this long for someone to type that. How does the Burks injury affect the roster build? Well, it affects it in the sense that they're going to need to keep a spot open for him. So one of those 53 will go to Burks, and they won't be able to put him on any kind of, IR, PUP, etc. Pack a bag or pack an egg. Raymond, that is a classic. That was a classic piece of video. What or who do you think will be the biggest surprise for the Pack this year? I think Mercedes Lewis's ability in the passing game is going to really surprise people. I think obviously the early returns on Jimmy Graham, everybody expects big numbers there. I don't think there's any question he's going to be one of Aaron Rodgers' favorite targets. But I think Mercedes Lewis is really going to help them in the passing game as a receiver, and I think he's going to really surprise some people in that regard. Any players Green Bay are looking at around the league who might get cut? Oh, there's no doubt they are looking at people, but they would never let us know. But we'll see. We'll know a little bit more in the next kind of 24 hours in regards to not only players that they're looking at who might get cut by other squads, but also possible trades. Did Donnerson and Looney or Looney show enough to make the 53? To my mind, I think Looney may have. I think Donnerson showed some athleticism, but I'd be surprised if both made it, maybe one or the other. Alex, is Pankey making the team? I would think so. I think they would put him on just because he's shown an ability to play both guard and tackle, which is something you need to be able to do to be a backup lineman in today's NFL. I don't think he's been particularly great at either one of those, but I think he's been much better at tackle than Byron Bell has been. What do you think about the move with Brett Hundley to Seattle? I think it's an absolute Jedi mind trick played by Brian Gutekunst on John Schneider to get anything more than a conditional 7th-round pick. I mean, I don't think there was any question that there was a good chance Hundley was going to get cut, and the Seahawks wouldn't have been able to have, or any team would have had to give up anything. Maybe there were other people sniffing around, and the Seahawks got wind of it and offered a 6th, and wanted to make sure they got him. But yeah, I think it's a good move by Gutekunst. And look, I've seen a lot of talk online about, Kaiser doesn't look ready, Boyle doesn't look ready, etc. I mean, look, the way the Packers are constructed, you don't have to look much further than the contract they just gave Aaron Rodgers. If he goes down for any extended period of time, they're done. It's not the Eagles who have, MVP level type play at the quarterback position from a rookie, or the Vikings who are constructed, they were getting competent play from a well-traveled veteran. The Packers have groomed Aaron Rodgers to be the franchise, and they have built their entire roster around that that precept. And if Rodgers goes down, they're done. It's over. Last year there was kind of this hope because Hundley had been developed, etc. This, to me, looks like Gutekunst going, we're not even going to pretend. If Rodgers goes down, we're okay. We can make it. No, If Rodgers goes down, they're done. So they're going to take Kaiser, they're going to develop him in the hopes that he's never needs to be used. They never need to break that glass in case of emergency. And they hope Rodgers leads them to the promised land. Positions Green Bay is most likely looking at filling from outside. I would say outside linebacker, they're going to be looking there. I think safety, they're probably going to be looking there. Maybe offensive line, but anybody who can do anything along the offensive line is on a team is not going to get cut. But those would be the three I think they'll be kind of really scouring the wire for. Can Crosby play into his 40s? I tend to doubt it, Matthew, but hey, man, the guys are playing later and later, right? All right, buddy, I'm going to take one or two more. Let's see what you got. Did Whitehead cost himself a spot in the 53 yesterday? I don't know if it's as simple as that. He certainly didn't help himself. But, the coaches love that guy. And I said it on Twitter last night, I've always preferred Marwin Evans. But they really like Whitehead's athleticism. They like him on special teams. We'll see how badly he hurt himself here in the next day or two. Realistically, what can we expect from Beagle? Julia, I would say a solid special teams contributor, maybe spot duty from scrimmage. That's kind of what I've been saying since he was drafted, and that sure seems to look to hold up this year. Now, maybe he develops over the course of the season. We start to see a little growth at the end of the year, and he adds a little pass rush. But right now, I think that's where he's sitting. All right, everybody, I'm going to jump. I can't thank you so much. I can't thank you enough for jumping on this inaugural broadcast here at Cheesehead TV. Make sure you turn on notifications if you're watching either at Cheesehead TV or on my blogger page. Either one, just make sure the notifications are on. You'll always know when we're live. Like I said, I'll be back next week. I'll hopefully be doing these every day during the week, and I'll be doing some form, something probably a little different after the games. But yeah, thanks a lot for viewing. Thanks a lot for watching and commenting, and I'll see you guys around cheeseheadtv.com, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot, everyone.